In a quiet little village surrounded by lush green hills and fields of golden wheat, life moved slowly. People knew each other by name, shared stories over cups of tea, and celebrated festivals together with great joy. It was one of those places where everyone felt like family. Among these villagers lived Maria Kowalski, a woman whose warmth lit up every room she entered. She wasn't just any ordinary person. Maria had a way of making people feel seen and cared for. Whether it was baking fresh bread for her neighbors or helping a struggling farmer mend his fence, she always found time to lend a hand. Maria's days were filled with simple joys. Every morning she woke up early to tend to her small farm. Chickens clucked around the yard, cows grazed lazily in the pasture, and the scent of blooming flowers lingered in the air. Her two young children, Anna and Lukasz, often helped her, water plants or chase butterflies, while their father, Jan, worked on repairing tools or fixing fences. Life wasn't luxurious, but it was happy. The Kowalski household radiated love, laughter, and contentment. But even in such peaceful surroundings, life has its unpredictable twists. One chilly evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky orange and pink, Maria suddenly grabbed her chest and let out a sharp gasp. Pain shot through her body, leaving her breathless. Jan rushed to her side, panic gripping his heart. "Maria, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice trembling. She tried to speak but couldn't form words. Her face turned pale, and within moments, she collapsed onto the wooden floor. Jan didn't waste a second. He scooped Maria into his arms and ran toward the old pickup truck parked outside. The drive to the nearest hospital seemed endless. Located miles away in the next town, the hospital was dimly lit and understaffed, but it was their only hope. As they arrived, doctors quickly ushered Maria inside for examination. Hours passed and Jan sat anxiously in the waiting area, praying silently that everything would be okay. Finally, a doctor emerged, his expression grim. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "We did everything we could, but your wife suffered a massive heart attack. She didn't make it." The news hit Jan like a thunderbolt. His knees buckled and tears streamed down his face. How could this happen? Just hours ago, Maria had been laughing with their children, planning meals for the week, and humming her favorite tune. Now she was gone. The weight of loss pressed heavily on his shoulders, but there was no time to grieve. Not yet. He had to break the devastating news to Anna and Lukasz, who were too young to fully understand death. That night, the house felt eerily silent without Maria's gentle presence. Word of Maria's passing spread quickly through the village. Friends and neighbors gathered at the Kowalski home to offer condolences and help prepare for the wake. In Polish tradition, wakes are solemn occasions meant to honor the deceased and provide closure for loved ones. A polished wooden coffin was brought in, adorned with white lilies, a symbol of purity and peace. Maria looked serene lying there, dressed in her finest clothes as if she were merely sleeping. Candles flickered around the room, casting soft glows on photographs of happier times. Mourners filed in one by one, sharing memories of Maria's kindness and the impact she'd made on their lives. Yet, amidst the somber atmosphere, something unusual lingered in the air, an unspoken tension that no one could quite put into words. Perhaps it was the shock of losing someone so vital to the community. Or maybe it was the eerie stillness of the house, which now felt hollow without Maria's laughter echoing through its halls. Whatever it was, it left many uneasy, though they dismissed it as grief playing tricks on their minds. As the hours ticked by, more people arrived to pay their respects. Some brought food, others offered prayers, and a few simply sat quietly, lost in thought. Despite the overwhelming sadness, there was also a sense of unity among the villagers. They had come together not only to mourn, but to support Jan and his children during this dark time. Little did anyone know, however, that the true test of their strength and their belief in the impossible was about to unfold. For deep within, the confines of the coffin, hidden beneath layers of fabric and silence, something extraordinary was stirring. The wake continued late into the night, with mourners filling the small living room of the Kowalski home. The air was thick with emotion. Grief, disbelief, and a shared sense of loss hung over everyone like a heavy cloud. Outside, The wind howled, softly, rustling the leaves of the old oak tree that stood guard near the house. Inside, candles flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The faint scent of lilies mixed with the earthy aroma of freshly baked bread brought by neighbors added an almost surreal quality to the scene. Maria lay peacefully in her coffin, her hands clasped together as though she were praying. Her face, though pale, still carried traces of the warmth and kindness she had always radiated in life. Friends and relatives took turns standing beside her, whispering prayers or simply gazing at her with tear-filled eyes. Some touched her cold, hands gently, saying their final goodbyes, while others stood back, unable to bring themselves closer. Jan sat in a corner, his head bowed low, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Anna and Lukasz clung to him, their small faces streaked with tears. They didn't fully understand what had happened, but they knew their mother wouldn't be coming back. Every now and then, someone would approach Jan to offer words of comfort, but he barely responded. His mind was elsewhere, replaying memories of Maria's laughter, her gentle voice calling out to the children, and the way she used to hum while cooking dinner. As midnight approached, the crowd began to thin. Many villagers had work early the next morning and reluctantly bid farewell after expressing their condolences. Those who remained were close friends and family members determined to stay until the end of the vigil. The room grew quieter, save for the occasional sniffle or the soft murmur of whispered conversations. The mood shifted from collective mourning to something more intimate, a private reckoning with the reality of Maria's absence. It was during this quiet lull that it happened. At first, no one noticed. A faint sound echoed through the room, a soft, rhythmic tapping. It was so subtle that most people dismissed it as part of the background noise. The creak of wooden floorboards settling, perhaps, or the wind rattling the windows. But then it came again, louder this time. Knock, knock, knock. 3 distinct taps, clear and deliberate, reverberating through the stillness of the room. Heads turned toward the source of the sound. Eyes widened in confusion and disbelief. The knock seemed to be coming from inside the coffin. For a moment, nobody moved. Time itself seemed to freeze. Was this some cruel prank? Had someone tampered with the coffin? Or worse, was it all in their heads, grief manifesting as auditory hallucinations? The idea was too unsettling to entertain, yet impossible to ignore. Then came another knock, louder, insistent, followed by what sounded like muffled cries, a desperate plea for help, muffled by layers of fabric and wood. The hair on the back of neck stood up. Whispers erupted among the mourners. Did you hear that? It's coming from the coffin. No, it can't be. Panic spread like wildfire. Some backed away instinctively, crossing themselves or muttering prayers, under their breath. Others froze where they stood, paralyzed by fear. Jan, who had been staring blankly at the floor, snapped out of his daze. He rose to his feet, his heart pounding wildly in his chest. Could it really be? Before anyone could stop him, Jan rushed to the coffin. His hands trembled as he reached for the lid. "We have to open it," he shouted, his voice cracking with urgency. But not everyone agreed. "She's gone, Jan," said one elderly woman, her voice trembling. "You saw her. The doctor said—" "I don't care what they said," Jan interrupted, his tone fierce. "Something's not right. I need to see for myself." Reluctantly, a few men stepped forward to assist him. Together they pried open the lid, their movements hesitant and awkward. As the casket creaked open, the entire room held its breath. And then, they saw her. Maria gasped sharply, sucking in a lungful of air as though she'd surfaced from drowning. Her eyes fluttered open, wide and unfocused, adjusting to the sudden brightness of the candlelit room. She blinked rapidly, disoriented and clearly frightened. Her lips parted, but no coherent words came out, only raspy, broken sounds that sent chills down everyone's spines. For several agonizing seconds, no one spoke. The silence was deafening. Then, chaos erupted. Women screamed, men stumbled backward, in shock. Children cried, clinging to their parents' legs. Even John, who had been certain something was amiss, looked as though he'd seen a ghost. Maria struggled to sit up, her body weak and unsteady. Someone quickly grabbed a blanket and draped it around her shoulders. Another handed her a glass of water, which she gulped down greedily. Slowly, her breathing steadied and she began to speak in halting sentences. "I woke up," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "It was dark. So dark. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. I thought I was buried alive." She shuddered, violently, wrapping the blanket tighter around herself. I kept knocking. The room fell silent once more, except for the sound of Maria's ragged breathing. Everyone stared at her, torn between awe and disbelief. How could this be possible? Just hours ago, doctors had declared her dead. Yet here she was, very much alive, sitting upright in her own coffin. Questions swirled in everyone's minds. What did this mean? Was it a miracle? A medical error? Or something far stranger, something beyond explanation? No one dared to voice their thoughts aloud. Instead, they watched Maria with a mixture of relief and unease, unsure whether to celebrate her return or fear the implications of what had just occurred. As the initial shock began to wear off, practical concerns took over. Someone suggested calling the hospital immediately to have Maria examined again. Others volunteered to help clean up the remnants of the wake, though none could shake the eerie feeling that lingered in the room. For John, the experience was both a blessing and a curse. He was overjoyed to have his wife back, but the memory of those haunting knocks and the image of her lying motionless just moments earlier would haunt him for days to come. And as for Maria, she sat quietly, staring at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. Though grateful to be alive, she couldn't shake the feeling that something about her ordeal was unfinished. Something, or someone, had brought her back. But why? And at what cost? The shock of Maria's sudden awakening quickly gave way to a flurry of activity. Jan, still trembling from the ordeal, insisted on taking her back to the hospital immediately. Despite protest from some villagers who believed reopening old wounds, or, worse, tempting fate, was unwise, Jan refused to listen. "She needs doctors," he said firmly, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "They made a mistake once. I won't let them make another." With the help of a few neighbors, Maria was carefully lifted out of the coffin and wrapped in warm blankets. Her body felt frail, as though even the slightest movement might shatter her. She clung tightly to Jan's arm, her eyes darting around, the room as if searching for something or someone she couldn't quite place. The children, Anna and Lukasz, stood nearby, their faces pale with confusion. They didn't fully understand what had happened, but they could sense the tension in the air. When Maria reached out to hold their hands, they hesitated for a moment, before rushing into her embrace, tears streaming down their cheeks. As the group prepared to leave, whispers rippled through the remaining mourners. Some speculated about miracles, while others muttered about curses or supernatural forces at play. An elderly man named Tadeusz, known for his knowledge of local legends, crossed himself repeatedly and mumbled prayers under his breath. He pulled Jan aside before they left. "Be careful," he warned in a low voice. "There are stories, tales of those who return when they shouldn't. Not all awakenings bring peace." Jan nodded politely but brushed off the warning. His focus was solely on getting Maria the care she needed. The drive to the hospital felt endless. Maria sat silently in the passenger seat, staring blankly out the window as the dark countryside rolled by. Occasionally, she would close her eyes and take deep, shaky breaths as if trying to steady herself against an invisible tide pulling her under. Jan glanced at her frequently, torn between relief and unease. What had she experienced during those hours when everyone thought she was dead? And why did she seem so distant now? When they arrived at the hospital, the staff was visibly startled. The same doctor who had pronounced her dead earlier that evening greeted them with wide eyes and stammered apologies. After ushering Maria into an examination room, he ordered a series of tests: blood work, x-rays, brain scans, all in an effort to explain the inexplicable. Hours passed as Jan paced anxiously outside, clutching a cup of cold coffee he'd forgotten to drink. Finally, The doctor emerged, looking both relieved and baffled. "Mrs. Kowalski is alive," he began cautiously, choosing his words carefully. "Her vital signs are stable and there's no immediate danger to her health. However," he hesitated, glancing at John as if unsure how much to reveal. "What we're dealing with here is a rare condition called catalepsy. It mimics death. Slowed breathing, paralysis, lack of response, but it isn't fatal. In extreme cases like this, patients can appear lifeless for extended periods." Jan listened intently, absorbing every word. Catalepsy. The term sounded foreign yet somehow fitting. But as the doctor continued explaining the condition, Jan couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Medical jargon aside, how could trained professionals have mistaken Maria for dead? Why hadn't they double-checked? These questions gnawed at him, but he knew pressing the issue wouldn't change anything. For now, the most important thing was that Maria was safe. Maria, however, wasn't entirely convinced by the diagnosis. As the days went by, she began opening up about her experience. Lying in her hospital bed, surrounded by machines beeping softly, she recounted the moments after collapsing at home. At first everything had gone black, a void so complete it felt like falling into nothingness. Then slowly sensations returned. She described feeling trapped in a suffocating darkness, unable to move or call for help. Every attempt to scream resulted only in silence. Every effort to move met with resistance, as if her body were encased in stone. "It was terrifying," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was buried alive. I kept hearing voices around me, but I couldn't see anyone. I knocked and knocked, hoping someone would hear me, but I didn't know if anyone would come." Her words sent chills down Jan's spine. Though grateful for her survival, he couldn't ignore the haunting implications of her story. Had she truly been conscious during those hours? Or had her mind conjured the experience as part of some delayed reaction to trauma? Neither possibility offered much comfort. Back home, the village buzzed with rumors. News of Maria's miraculous recovery spread like wildfire, drawing curious visitors from neighboring towns. Some came bearing gifts and well-wishes, eager to catch a glimpse of the woman who had cheated death. Others whispered behind closed doors, speculating about darker forces at work. Was Maria's awakening a blessing or a curse? One afternoon, as Maria rested in the living room, a knock at the door interrupted the quiet. Standing outside was Marta, the village herbalist, a wiry woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for knowing things others didn't. She carried a small satchel filled with dried herbs and tinctures, claiming she had remedies to ease Maria's lingering anxiety. But as the two women sat together, sipping chamomile tea, Marta leaned closer and lowered her voice. "There's more to your story than medicine can explain," she said cryptically. "You've been touched by something ancient. Something beyond our understanding. Catalepsy may explain your body, but it doesn't account for your spirit." Maria frowned, unsure whether to dismiss the comment or take it seriously. Yet as the days turned into weeks, strange occurrences began to plague her. Objects moved inexplicably. A vase sliding across the table, a chair scraping backward without being touched. Shadows danced along the walls at night, even when no candles were lit. And then there were the dreams. Vivid, unsettling visions of a veiled figure standing at the edge of a river, beckoning her forward. Each time she woke, drenched in sweat, she felt an overwhelming urge to follow, to step into the unknown. John noticed the changes in her demeanor. Once vibrant and full of life, Maria now seemed haunted, as if carrying a weight too heavy for words. He urged her to speak to a therapist, thinking perhaps the trauma of her near-death experience was manifesting in unusual ways. But Maria shook her head. "This isn't just in my head," she insisted. "Something brought me back, Jan. Something or someone isn't done with me yet." Though skeptical, Jan couldn't deny the evidence mounting around them. The inexplicable phenomena continued growing bolder with each passing day. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, the wind outside picked up suddenly, rattling the windows and extinguishing every candle in the house. In the darkness, A single voice echoed through the room, a soft, melodic whisper that sent shivers down their spines. The eerie whisper of "wake up" lingered in the air long after the candles had been relit. The family sat frozen, their hearts pounding as they stared at one another in stunned silence. Had they all imagined it? Or was there truly something unnatural at play? Maria's face was pale, her hands trembling as she clutched the edge of the table. Jan reached out to steady her, his own fear masked by a desperate attempt to stay strong for his wife and children. "Did you hear that?" Anna asked timidly, breaking the heavy silence. Her small voice quivered with uncertainty. Lukasz nodded slowly, his wide eyes reflecting both terror and confusion. Even Jan, who had spent the past weeks trying to rationalize everything, couldn't deny what he'd just heard. It wasn't a creaking floorboard or the wind, it was unmistakably Maria's voice, yet it hadn't come from her lips. Maria stood abruptly, pushing her chair back with a sharp scrape against the wooden floor. Without a word, she walked toward the window and peered outside. The night was calm now, the earlier gusts of wind replaced by an unsettling stillness. Shadows stretched across the yard, cast by the moonlight filtering through thin clouds. She scanned the darkness, half expecting to see someone or something watching her. But there was nothing. Just empty fields and the distant silhouette of trees swaying gently. "I think we need answers," Maria said finally, turning back to face her family. Her tone was resolute, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. "This isn't normal. None of this is normal." Jan hesitated. He wanted to believe that exhaustion, stress, or even some unexplained psychological phenomenon could explain away the strange events plaguing their home. But deep down, he knew better. Whatever was happening, it went beyond logic. And if anyone could shed light on it, it might be Marta, the village herbalist who had hinted at forces far older and more mysterious than modern medicine could comprehend. The next morning, Maria visited Marta's cottage on the outskirts of the village. Nestled among gnarled oak trees and overgrown ivy, the small stone house seemed almost otherworldly. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, carrying the scent of burning sage and dried lavender. As Maria approached, she felt a strange pull, a mix of curiosity and apprehension, as if stepping into a realm where time moved differently. Marta greeted her at the door, her piercing gaze assessing Maria before she even spoke. "You've come," the herbalist said simply as though expecting her. She ushered Maria inside, closing the door firmly behind them. The interior of the cottage was dimly lit, filled with shelves crammed with jars of herbs, crystals, and ancient books bound in cracked leather. A low fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows across the walls. "Tell me everything," Marta urged, settling into a worn armchair. Her voice carried a weight of authority, leaving no room for hesitation. Maria recounted her experience, from the suffocating darkness inside the coffin to the haunting dreams and inexplicable occurrences at home. As she spoke, Marta listened intently, occasionally nodding or murmuring under her breath. When Maria finished, Marta leaned forward, her expression grave. "What you've described, it's not just catalepsy," she began. "Your body may have been trapped in that state, but your spirit..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes when someone is caught between worlds, they attract attention. Entities, spirits, guardians, whatever you wish to call them, may take notice. They can guide, protect, or interfere." Maria frowned, struggling to process what Marta was saying. "Are you telling me I'm haunted?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Not exactly," Marta replied. "It's possible that your awakening was not entirely your doing. There are legends about those who return because they're needed, to fulfill a purpose, to right a wrong, or to carry a message. You were brought back for a reason, Maria. Whether you choose to believe it or not, something greater is at work, here." Over the following days, Maria became consumed with unraveling the mystery surrounding her near-death experience. She scoured old books borrowed from Marta's collection, searching for clues about catalepsy, spiritual awakenings, and folklore tied to her village. Some tales spoke of individuals who had returned from the brink of death only to discover hidden, truths about their lives or others. Others warned of restless spirits seeking closure. One particular story caught Maria's attention. It told of a woman centuries ago who had been mistakenly buried alive during a plague outbreak. Her cries went unheard until villagers unearthed her coffin weeks later, finding her skeletal remains clawing at the lid. According to legend, her spirit never found peace and continued wandering, seeking justice for the living. Could this be connected to Maria's ordeal? Was the veiled figure in her dreams trying to communicate something? Determined to find answers, Maria decided to visit the local cemetery. Though the thought made her uneasy, she felt drawn to it as if compelled by an invisible force. Armed with a lantern and a notebook, she wandered among the weathered tombstones, tracing names etched into the stone. Many belonged to ancestors she vaguely recognized. Others were strangers whose stories had faded with time. As dusk settled, over the graveyard, Maria knelt beside a particularly old grave. The inscription was barely legible, but she could make out fragments. "Here lies," followed by a name obscured by moss. Suddenly, the temperature dropped sharply, and the flame of her lantern flickered wildly. A cold breeze swept through the cemetery, rustling leaves and sending shivers down her spine. Then she heard it again, that same melodic whisper. "Wake up." This time, however, the voice wasn't hers. It was softer, sadder, as if pleading for understanding. Maria turned slowly, her breath catching in her throat. Standing a few feet away was the veiled figure from her dreams. Its form wavered like smoke, translucent yet undeniably present. Beneath the veil, Maria glimpsed hollow eyes filled with sorrow. "Who are you?" Maria whispered, her voice shaking. "What do you want from me?" The figure didn't respond directly. Instead, it extended a hand, pointing toward a cluster of graves nearby. Maria followed its gesture, her heart pounding as she approached the area. Among the headstones, one stood out, an unmarked slab of stone partially covered by weeds. Kneeling beside it, Maria brushed away the dirt and debris, revealing faint carvings beneath. The name read, Katarzyna. A memory stirred within her, a tale her grandmother used to tell about a young woman named Katarzyna, who had died tragically during childbirth. Rumors swirled that her husband, distraught and guilt-ridden, had hastily buried her without proper rites, leaving her soul unrestful. Could this be the spirit reaching out to her? That night, Maria shared her discovery with Jan. Together, they resolved to honor Katarzyna's memory, hoping it might bring peace to both the spirit and their troubled household. With Marta's guidance, they organized a small ceremony at the gravesite, lighting candles, offering prayers, and placing flowers atop the forgotten stone. As dawn broke, a sense of calm washed over Maria, as if a weight had been lifted. Yet the journey was far from over. While the supernatural disturbances ceased, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that her awakening carried deeper significance, a mission yet to unfold. In the days following the graveside ceremony for Katarzyna, a profound sense of calm settled over Maria and her family. The unsettling whispers that had haunted their home ceased entirely, and the strange occurrences, shifting objects, flickering lights, and shadowy figures vanished as if they had never existed. For the first time in weeks, Maria slept through the night without waking in a cold sweat. Her dreams, once filled with the veiled figure and dark rivers, became peaceful visions of sunlight streaming through open windows and fields of blooming flowers. Yet despite this newfound tranquility, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that her journey was far from over. While honoring Katarzyna's memory seemed to have brought temporary peace, it also ignited something within her. A deep curiosity about the purpose behind her miraculous return. Why had she been chosen to wake up when so many others throughout history hadn't? What did the universe, or perhaps some higher power, expect of her now? Marta, the herbalist, noticed the change in Maria almost immediately. When Maria visited her cottage again, seeking answers rather than solace, Marta nodded knowingly. "You've begun to see it, haven't you?" she asked, stirring a pot of fragrant tea on the hearth. "Your awakening wasn't just for you. It's bigger than that." Maria hesitated before responding. She wanted to dismiss Marta's words as mere superstition, but everything she'd experienced, the inexplicable events, the haunting dreams, even the mysterious connection to Katarzyna, pointed toward something beyond coincidence. "What do you mean by bigger?" she finally asked, her voice tinged with both apprehension and intrigue. Marta leaned back in her chair, her sharp eyes studying Maria intently. Throughout history, there are stories of people who were given second chances, not just to live, but to heal wounds, mend broken lives, or uncover truths hidden beneath layers of silence. You've been touched by forces we can barely comprehend, Maria. And while I don't pretend to know exactly why you were brought back, I believe your survival is tied to helping others navigate their own darkness. The idea unsettled Maria. She had always considered herself an ordinary woman, content with tending to her farm, raising her children, and supporting her community in small ways. But the thought of being called upon for something greater, something extraordinary, was overwhelming. Still, deep down, she felt a pull, an undeniable urge to explore what Marta was suggesting. Over the next few weeks, Maria began noticing subtle changes in how people interacted with her. Villagers who had once greeted her warmly now approached her with a mix of awe and reverence. Some whispered blessings as she passed, believing her survival to be nothing short of divine intervention. Others sought her out, hoping to share their troubles or seek guidance. At first, Maria tried to brush off these interactions, insisting she was no different than before. But the more she listened to their stories, the more she realized how much pain and suffering lingered beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic village life. One afternoon, as Maria walked through the marketplace, she encountered Mrs. Zawadzki, a frail elderly woman known for her kindness yet burdened by grief. Her son had died tragically in a farming accident years ago, leaving her despondent and isolated. As Maria stopped to chat, Mrs. Zawadzki opened up about her struggles, confessing that she often felt abandoned by those around her. "No one talks about him anymore," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "It's like he never existed." Maria reached out instinctively, placing a comforting hand on the woman's shoulder. "He mattered," she said softly. "And his memory still matters. You're not alone, Mrs. Zawadzki. None of us are." Her words seemed to ease the older woman's sorrow, if only slightly. As Maria continued her errands, she couldn't help but reflect on the conversation. Was this part of what Marta meant? Was she meant to be a source of comfort for those grappling with loss and loneliness? Inspired by the encounter, Maria decided to take action. Drawing on her own experience of narrowly escaping death, she organized a gathering at her home, an informal support group where villagers could come together to share their stories of grief, fear, and resilience. Though hesitant at first, many attended, eager to connect with others who understood their pain. Over cups of tea and homemade bread, strangers became friends, united by their shared humanity. Word of Maria's initiative spread quickly, drawing attention from neighboring towns. People traveled long distances to attend her gatherings, finding solace in her gentle presence and unwavering empathy. What started as a small meeting in her living room soon grew into a movement, with Maria becoming a beacon of hope for countless individuals struggling to cope with loss. Despite her growing influence, Maria remained humble, often reminding herself that she was merely a vessel for something greater. Yet, the weight of responsibility sometimes felt overwhelming. Late at night, when the house was quiet and the children were asleep, she would sit by the window, staring out at the stars. Questions swirled in her mind. Had she truly fulfilled whatever purpose awaited her? Or was there still more to come? One evening, as she gazed at the sky, she heard a familiar sound, a soft, melodic whisper carried by the wind. This time, however, it wasn't her name being called. Instead, it was a single word spoken with warmth and gratitude. "Thank you." Tears welled in Maria's eyes as she recognized the voice. It belonged to Katarzyna. The spirit she had helped lay to rest was finally at peace, its message one of thanks and closure. For the first time since her awakening, Maria felt a sense of completion, as if a chapter of her journey had come to an end. But even as she embraced this moment of clarity, she knew her path forward wouldn't be easy. There would always be new challenges, new sorrows to face, and new lives to touch. Yet she welcomed it all with open arms, knowing that every step she took was part of something far greater than herself. Maria Kowalski may have returned from the brink of death, but in doing so, she discovered a purpose that transcended her own existence. And though the road ahead remained uncertain, one thing was clear. She was ready to walk it, guided by love, compassion, and an unshakable belief in the power of human connection. Maria's days became a delicate balance of tending to her family, managing her farm, and nurturing the growing community she had unintentionally built. Her home transformed into more than just a shelter. It became a sanctuary for those seeking comfort, understanding, and healing. The small gatherings that started as informal meetings evolved into structured sessions where villagers shared their stories, celebrated milestones, and mourned losses together. It wasn't long before Maria earned a new title among the townsfolk, the Keeper of Light. Though she never sought recognition or praise, it was clear to everyone around her that she possessed a unique ability to illuminate even the darkest corners of the human soul. As word of Maria's work spread beyond the village, invitations began, pouring in from neighboring towns and cities. People wanted to hear her story, not just about how she had survived being declared dead, but about how she had turned such an unimaginable experience into something meaningful. At first, Maria hesitated. Public speaking terrified her. She preferred quiet conversations over large audiences. But Jan encouraged her, reminding her that sharing her journey might inspire others who felt lost or hopeless. "You've already made so much difference here," he told her one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "Imagine what you could do elsewhere." With a mix of trepidation and determination, Maria accepted her first invitation to speak at a nearby town hall. Standing on stage, clutching the edges of the podium with trembling hands, she began recounting her ordeal. The suffocating darkness inside the coffin, the haunting knocks no one initially heard, and the eerie dreams that followed. She spoke candidly about her doubts, fears, and moments of despair, making sure to acknowledge the role her family, friends, and especially Marta had played in helping her navigate the unknown. By the time she finished, the room was silent except for the sound of sniffles and soft applause. To her surprise, the audience didn't view her as some untouchable figure blessed by fate. They saw her as someone relatable, someone who had faced unimaginable hardship yet emerged stronger because of it. Afterward, dozens of people lined up to thank her, share their own struggles, or simply hug her. For many, her story offered not just hope but permission to confront their own pain without shame. Over time, Maria's influence extended far beyond personal connections or public speeches. Inspired by the support group she had created, she collaborated with local leaders to establish similar initiatives in other communities. These groups focused not only on grief, but also on fostering resilience, promoting mental health awareness, and encouraging open dialogue about topics often considered taboo. Maria traveled frequently, visiting schools, hospitals, and community centers to advocate for reforms in how society approached death, loss, and recovery. One of her most significant contributions came when she partnered with medical professionals to address the issue of misdiagnoses like hers. Catalepsy, though rare, posed a real risk, one that could easily be mitigated with proper training and protocols. Maria worked tirelessly alongside doctors, nurses, and researchers to develop educational programs aimed at preventing similar tragedies. Her advocacy led to policy changes within regional healthcare systems, ensuring that patients displaying symptoms of apparent death underwent additional testing before any final declarations were made. Despite her busy schedule, Maria never lost sight of what truly mattered: her family. Anna and Lukasz grew older, thriving under their mother's care and wisdom. They learned early on the importance of kindness, empathy, and standing up for those in need. Often they accompanied Maria to events, helping set up chairs, serve refreshments, or simply listened to the stories shared by attendees. Watching them grow into compassionate young individuals filled Maria with immense pride. Jan, too, remained her steadfast partner, supporting her endeavors while keeping their home grounded in love and stability. Yet even as Maria embraced her newfound purpose, she couldn't ignore the lingering sense that her awakening carried implications beyond the physical world. Late at night, when the house was quiet and the stars blinked lazily in the sky, she would sit by the window, reflecting on the mysterious forces that had guided her journey. The veiled figure, Katarzyna, hadn't appeared to her again after that final whisper of gratitude, but its presence still lingered in her thoughts. Had Katarzyna been a guardian angel, a restless spirit seeking closure, or perhaps a manifestation of her own subconscious urging her to act? Marta believed the answer lay somewhere in between. During one of their regular meetings, the herbalist explained that ancient traditions often viewed near-death experiences as opportunities for transformation, not just for the individual, but for the collective. When someone crosses the threshold and returns, they carry fragments of knowledge from the other side, Marta said, stirring a pot of herbal tea. It's not always clear what form that knowledge will take, but it shapes everything they do moving forward. Maria nodded thoughtfully. Whether it was divine intervention, supernatural guidance, or simply the universe nudging her toward a greater purpose, she knew one thing for certain. Her survival hadn't been random. Every moment of fear, confusion, and doubt had led her to this point, a life dedicated to uplifting others and creating ripples of positive change. Years passed, and Maria's legend only grew stronger. Books were written about her experience, documentaries filmed, and awards bestowed upon her for her humanitarian efforts. Yet, through it all, she remained humble, deflecting attention back onto the people whose lives she had touched. "I'm not special," she would say with a warm smile whenever someone praised her. "I'm just someone who got a second chance and decided to make the most of it." Her children eventually left home, pursuing their own dreams while carrying forward the values instilled in them by their mother. Anna became a teacher, passionate about empowering young minds, while Lukasz joined a non-profit organization focused on disaster relief. Both credited Maria for inspiring them to live lives of service and compassion. As for Jan, he stood by her side until the very end, his unwavering support a testament to their enduring love. Together they grew old, watching sunsets from the same porch where they had once dreamed of brighter tomorrows. When Maria finally passed away, this time peacefully surrounded by loved ones, her legacy lived on through the countless lives she had impacted. On the day of her funeral, hundreds gathered to pay their respects, each person holding a candle in honor of the light she had brought into their lives. As the procession moved toward the cemetery, a gentle breeze swept through the crowd, carrying with it the faint scent of lilies. Many swore they heard a familiar voice whispering softly, "Thank you," whether it was Maria's spirit bidding farewell or Katarzyna offering one last message of gratitude. No one could say for sure. What mattered was that Maria's story, a tale of survival, redemption, and boundless compassion, would continue to inspire generations to come. And in doing so, she ensured that her light would never truly fade.